Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today we're talking about what to do and what not to do this summer before law school. Your Law School Toolbox hosts are Alison Monahan and Lee Burgess. That's me. We're here to demystify the law school and early legal career experience so you'll be the best law student and lawyer you can be. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. Alison also runs the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review or rating on your favorite listening app. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us via the contact form on lawschooltoolbox.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started.
Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today, we're talking about what to do and what not to do the summer before law school. Well, what were we doing the summer before law school? I'm trying to remember. I know I was planning to leave my software job. I was a programmer at the time and move across the country. I think I read a book or two about the law school experience. I think I bought some books about the law that I'm pretty sure I never actually read. And I found my law school roommate on a message board. So that was kind of what I spent my summer doing. How about you, Lee?
Yeah, let's see. I was still working for much of the summer. I took a nice long vacation to Costa Rica with my best friend, which was very fun. And then I read like 1L and watched a lot of movies on law school. I don't know why I don't even know that I thought that did anything. I just felt like it was just like a fun thing to do over the summer. But I finished working just a week or two before school started because I was trying to make money. And I just kind of tried to enjoy like that professional life as long as I had it before I kind of said bye-bye to my nice salary and then went back to school. But I just tried to have fun. I think that's what I kind of focused on, was trying to have as much fun as I could over that summer.
That was smart of you. Yeah, I definitely think I should have quit my job sooner because I was I was also moving across the country. And I remember like the panicked moment of trying to get my boxes shipped out, in time and all that kind of stuff. So that was probably not my best call ever. But, I had kind of a history of doing that over and over. So it wasn't really that surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Unrealistic expectations around how long things would take was kind of a running theme.
Well, I feel like with moving and any sort of big thing, I don't think anyone has realistic expectations. It always takes much longer than you think and is more complicated than you think.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, I should have allocated more time, and I definitely was not having fun most of that in that period.
Well, I didn't have to move. I stayed in the same city. So that was a big shift, as I wasn't relocating. So I just could like kind of work and enjoy my life. I had moved in the spring before law school once I decided I was going to stay. So I kind of like did all of that stuff, the responsible stuff in the spring, and then kind of traveled and had fun over the summer. I think there were weddings and things, happening that I went to. And then it was like, oh, now I just switch and go to school.
Yeah, that was smart of you. Yeah, I mean, for most people, I think this pre-law school summer is kind of this mix of practical logistics, and we're going to talk about those in more detail in upcoming episodes. We're not going to get too into that. And then kind of concern / excitement about what they're getting into, and also this time to wrap things up, whether that's a job, housing, relationships, whatever it is. It's this kind of transition. So I think it can be a little bit fraught, but also is a good time to kind of, wrap some stuff up, start some new things, and really get yourself situated to be going into law school with the right mindset and not be worrying about like all this other stuff. And I mean, interestingly, I think people don't actually really need to worry that much about like the school aspects of it in a funny way, because you're going to have an orientation and no one really expects you to know that much when you show up. So, sometimes people ask us like, well, how much substantive law should I try to learn this summer? I mean, that's something I should start as soon as I get my class schedule, right?
No, please don't.
No, you don't need to do that.
Please don't do that. You're going to school to learn all this stuff. They're going to teach it to you. That's the whole point of going to school.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes your school may have things they ask you to do beforehand, to read something or, whatever it is. And obviously you want to do that. But nobody really expects you to know anything about the law when you show
Yeah.
up. So if I'm not going to be spending the summer reading my torts outlines, what should I be doing instead?
Well, I think if you feel like you want to do some prep for school, you can work on your skills. I think it's
Right.
not a good use of your time to focus on learning law because they'll teach you that. But you can work on your study skills. And we have a course for that. There are other courses. Our course is called Start Law School Right. The idea is a little kind of almost exposure therapy of what the semester is going to be like. What does it feel like to try and read a case? What does it feel like to listen to a class lecture? What is it going to sound like to get called on? What are class notes supposed to look like? These are things that are more about the law school experience. And I think it can be nice to have a little exposure to this before starting school, especially if you don't have lawyers in your family or in your network that will talk to you about it. It can be really overwhelming because the class format is different. The Socratic method feels different. It's just a lot of different all at once. So if you want to spend some time doing that, I think it's really important to take some time. It's not necessary. You don't have to do it, but it can just ease the transition and not make you feel like so much of a fish out of water on those, when you hit orientation or go to those first few classes.
I think that's right. I don't think it's necessary to do anything, but I think if you are going to do something, focus on the skills, don't focus on the law. Also, in terms of skills, I mean, if you know, for example, that your writing could be improved, know that you don't have the best grammar, for example, you can actually work on that this summer. There's a great kind of antiquated book called Strunk and White, The Elements of Style. It was written in the 1930s, believe it or not. Still a totally valid resource. It is under $10 on Amazon. I looked this up. That is a very, very, very good investment. It's a very small book, and it's not even $10. So if you know that you need help with writing, I think that could be something that would be a really good use of your time.
I think that's true. Another thing that we've talked about is that as a skill that you want to perfect is reading. You're going to do a lot of reading. You're going to do a lot of difficult reading. And so often now, most of our reading is on our phones, which is really skimming, not reading in the same way. I've moved back to reading paper books mostly, not reading things on my phone because it's just such a different experience because I'm trained to skim on my phone. You glance at your phone. And I think that you need to, get used to reading denser material and slowing down and kind of plodding through it. And that's just not how our life works these days. We read fast, we type fast, we move fast, and you're going to have to get yourself into the mindset of kind of slowing down and doing something that's deliberately hard.
Yeah, I think, any time you can spend the summer reading something that's challenging that you have to really focus on is great. If you don't feel quite up to that yet, one thing I've been doing more recently, because I also have been trying to read more on paper and less on my phone or Instagram or whatever. I'm just reading Instagram captions even count. But I've actually, I've got a huge backlog of New Yorkers that I've been working my way through. And I feel like that could be good training wheels because those articles, they're not super hard, but, they're not poorly written or anything. Some of them are about things you don't know anything about. Actually, a lot of them lately have been about legal things, although I haven't read all of those. But that's, sort of maybe like 4 to 6 pages. And, that can be a good training wheels to kind of get yourself sitting down and like doing some stuff before you attempt War and Peace.
That's very true.
Got to kind of work up to it.
Yeah. I think it can be just good intellectual practice. If you want to read some books that are somewhat connected to the law, I don't think that that's a bad thing. It can, all that information and names and terms can go into your brain, but you shouldn't feel like you need to like learn the law.
Right. I think I picked up like a Lawrence Lessing book on like code is the law of cyberspace or something. So I was like, oh, I'm a programmer, and then going to law school, and I honestly think I read like a chapter of it, but even that was probably still useful.
Yeah,
I used to see that. I would see
Go
that
ahead.
book on my bookshelf for years afterwards and feel bad about not finishing it. Eventually, I donated it.
Even a good audiobook. We were talking about the other day how I'm reading Ellie Mistal's new book on the Constitution, which we can link to in the show notes, which isn't written for lawyers, but there is a lot of law in there. And you should read about it and see if you would find it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anything that's kind of like law for non-lawyers is good. There's one, I think I bought it in the summer and eventually was reading it for my professional responsibility class called I think it's the Buffalo Creek Disaster. And that's just like a really interesting book. It's all about this case in West Virginia, I think. And it goes through the entire process. So anything that, that seems interesting, I think would be good. I just don't think you should force yourself to read things that are going to be really tedious that you're going to hate and probably not understand. Oh, I also remember I read an entire Supreme Court case that came down that summer. And like you realize in law school, you never read the whole case. It was 100 plus pages. I mean, I was like, wow, this is really a lot. But like they edit those for you in the case book.
Yeah, they do.
Like substantially.
They help you out. Substantially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like that case, maybe it was a pretty important case. I think maybe it would be like, 10 pages that you would actually read for your class. So I did slog through that entire case, I will say.
So other than, reading and kind of getting your brain into this idea of learning new material, I think checking how you approach challenging things with a growth mindset is also something to consider. I think just do something that makes you uncomfortable. I think it's, every time I set myself up to do something uncomfortable, it is such a great reminder that you want to like practice your growth mindset. So pre-pandemic, my son decided that he wanted to try rock climbing. So I took him to the rock climbing gym and I signed him up for this class. And then didn't realize that what I'd actually signed us up for was like both of us to be in this class. And then I was also going to be rock climbing, which is not something I'd done before. And, I think that there are times when you like look at the small people in your life, they look at you and like, why wouldn't you want to go climb the wall, Mom? And then you're
what do you mean you don't want to go up to the top of this?
And then I was just like, right, and so I did it. But it was a good practice of having to kind of, set aside all the like responsible chitter chatter or, self-doubt talk that can kind of come into our brains and just be like, no, I am going to show my kid that I can scale the wall. And, I think it can be anything. It can be practicing, vocabulary in a foreign language. It can be going to a difficult yoga class. It can be taking an art class. I think just getting out of your comfort zone and reminding yourself what it feels like to kind of take on a new challenge can also just help you the first day in law school when they use a lot of terms that you don't know and you feel that same kind of icky feeling of like, I don't belong here. I shouldn't
know
be
what's
here.
happening.
Right. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. It's so much better if you can be like, no, I'm used to this feeling. I can just plow right through this and keep going with this idea that, I'm on a path. It's just a much better way to approach it.
Right. I think this can also be a good summer to kind of develop a hobby that you can then pursue while you're in law school. So it could be something physical like yoga or rock climbing or running or soccer, whatever. Or something more artistic and creative. I think pottery. I have at various times done like wheel thrown pottery. I think that's a great thing that you can do to get out of your head, which is critical at some points in law school. But, it's something that you enjoy and that maybe you've been interested in doing, but you haven't really had a lot of time to do. Because, the reality is you actually will, in a lot of ways, have extra time in law school. You won't have like tons of extra time because you'll be working and studying, but you may actually have pockets of time during the day and things like that a lot of people don't have. So it could actually be a good opportunity to do something that could be fun that you could continue.
It's true. And maybe try a hobby that doesn't involve a screen.
Right, exactly. Something physical, whether it's like arty physical or, physical. I did a lot of weird gym classes when I was in law school because I just thought it was like fun. I mean, I took up squash at one point because it was New York in the wintertime and you couldn't play tennis. So, I think you will have these opportunities to expand your horizons. And this would be a great thing to do over the summer to get started.
Yeah. I guess the one other skill that sometimes is overlooked is typing. If you struggle with typing and typing at any speed, that is probably something you want to work on. I'm sure that it is far beyond the Mavis Beacon teaches typing or whatever we used back in the olden days.
I took a typing class at the community college when I was in high school one summer, and I'm pretty sure I failed it because I stopped going at some point because I figured I'd like learned enough. I wasn't really going to be a typist. And yeah, I think I had to report that when I applied to college.
That's really funny.
And I was like, sorry, I had an F in typing.
Yeah,
but a sophomore in high school.
It is an important skill. We talk to folks who struggle with the bar exam, and one thing that we hear over and over again is, I'm a very slow typist. I can't write down as many words as the person sitting next to me. And that's a real thing.
That is reality. I mean, if you are on a racehorse law school exam and there's no character limit and someone can type 50% more than you can type in the same time period, they are probably going to get more points because they're going to have more stuff on the page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think you need to be realistic about it.
Yeah. And this is definitely a growth mindset thing because everyone can learn to type better. It's just like a physical skill.
Yep. That's so true. So, like you mentioned, we're going to talk a lot about logistics in an upcoming podcast, but it is important to figure out what you need to do to get your life in order. So that would go to all your doctor's appointments and checkups, especially if you're going to move. Try and do all that stuff before you move, so you don't have to find new people everywhere.
Even just getting a haircut. I was talking.
I know it's like
today. It's like, oh, you got to get that done.
I know. Get a haircut. Get new eyeglasses. Make sure that if you're on meds, that you have as many of your meds refills set up so you can easily get stuff, maybe even auto sent to you if possible. Think about food, where you're going to exercise and move your body. Like all of that stuff is important. And the more you figure out before school starts, the less stressful the beginning of school is. So I like to think about like a lot of this organization before you go to school over the summer is like an insurance policy almost. I mean, it's just keeping everything rolling. And if things get rocky, then all this stuff doesn't fall to the wayside.
Yeah. And I think along with, seeing your regular doctors and things, if you need anything to get accommodations or you think that you might need to get accommodations in law school, this would be a great time to get all that set up so that you can just submit it and get rolling and know that you're going to have the support that you need when you get started, not, a semester or two down the road.
And you should be able to even reach out to the disability services over the summer. I would assume
exactly.
Once
like, what do I need? Yeah, like, what are you going to need for this? Because they're pretty overwhelmed, I think, at a lot of schools at this point.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to kind of facilitate that process, I think doing earlier is great, particularly if you need to see like a private physician or something to get an assessment. Like you want to make sure that you've handled all that if you can before classes start.
Yeah. I think, when I spent some time doing over that summer, and what I do think is important too, is just spending time with friends and family that you may not be able to see, maybe because you're moving, maybe because you're going to be busy, maybe because they're a distraction, whatever it might be.
Right.
But you should invest in your relationships because while the semester is happening, you're not going to be as flexible and available. So kind of fill up everybody's love tank before starting school.
Right. And like kind of set those expectations as well of, this is what it might look like when I'm in school. This is how often I might be able to see you, mom, dad, or whoever,
Right.
And I honestly don't think it's even too early to start thinking about things like Thanksgiving because that becomes like such an issue.
Oh, yeah. Well, it comes up really quickly because once school starts rolling, the fall just flies by.
Yeah, and like Thanksgiving is right at that time where like you really need to be buckling down. It's just pre-exams. You're probably freaking out. And, if your family expects you to fly across the country and like do the 4 to 5 days that they've always done, like that might just be a conversation to have this summer.
Yeah. Could also, there's weather concerns. You can get stuck when your exams. It is a good idea to just look at that academic calendar a bit.
Yeah, I think, people just need to kind of understand that you're going to be committed to school and they may just not have as much like accessibility towards you for a little while.
Yep.
If you're leaving a job, I think you really want to make sure that you're doing that in the most professional manner possible.
True.
I know there's a trend now of like burn it all down, videotape it, put it on TikTok. Probably not the best choice here. You are almost certainly going to have to report this job when you apply for the bar because they're just going to ask you for everything. You may need a reference. You definitely don't want to have a situation where you burn the whole thing down and then years later that comes back to haunt you.
Yep. You can still skip from the building in Glee, which is one thing I did at one of my jobs without really hurting your reputation in the wake. I mean, I did turn in my laptop and I basically skipped out of the building, but my bosses didn't see that. So.
Yeah, there's a picture my sister took of me late night moving out of my office where I have literally the most gleeful look on my face, but I didn't publish that on the internet.
No, I didn't publish that.
So I think just, you're going into professional school. Don't do anything crazy. Just give your notice, work whatever they want you to, the notice period, and then go away knowing that you're moving on to bigger and better things.
Yep, exactly. Well, what about relationships? Like, this is always something
fun.
that I think people think about. Some people even talk about them in orientation. I think a professor told people how many of them were going to break up with their significant others during law school, which was maybe not 100% appropriate, but I think a lot of times you do hear about a lot of breakups, especially long distance relationships, once someone starts law school.
Yeah, I mean, I was in that scenario. Like I'd been with someone in San Francisco and they decided they didn't want to move to New York, which was totally fine. However, in retrospect, we probably should have broken up at that point. Rather than letting it kind of go for the entire first semester, because it ended up in a situation where I was feeling resentful that I had to talk to this person every night when I had all these other things that I needed to do and I just wanted to go to sleep. And they're feeling alone because I've abandoned them and moved to the East Coast. And it just wasn't a great situation for anyone. And so we basically broke up like over the winter break. So, I think this is a hard question. I think if the relationship is kind of on a sinking ship pattern and you're going to be moving, maybe that's a great time to split up or at least give a trial separation.
Yeah. Or at least set some really clear expectations, I think.
Exactly.
Because the extra drama doesn't serve you while you're trying to negotiate school.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, I think relationships can be great and having someone who's supportive is fantastic, even if they happen to be far away and you're both willing to work with that. But I do think you kind of have to be realistic here. Like you're not going to have a lot of time, particularly if you're going to be in different places. This is going to be really tough. How committed are you really to this relationship? Mm-hmm. And that's just something that people kind of have to sit with. And it doesn't have to be like, a nasty breakup, but I do think you have to be realistic here.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I mean, because you met your husband while you were in law school, right?
I did between the summer between my second and third year.
Yeah,
which is a really nice time to meet somebody because you're kind of not in the beginning where you're just like treading water and you see the end in sight. So that was actually like a much easier time, I think, to meet someone.
Yeah, I think the first semester is just so intense for so many people that it's really hard to maintain like an ongoing connection with someone who's not there and not doing that. Yeah. I definitely knew a lot of people who broke up with significant others either during the first semester or over the winter break. And like you said, it honestly just ends up being a lot of drama that you probably don't really need. And like maybe it's better to be sad for like a little while over the summer and then jump into something, in the fall and just commit to school versus just letting these things drag on that aren't really going to work out.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my take on it, having done the like drag it out approach.
Yeah, I did my drag it out before law school. Law school was one of the ways I got out of dragging it out.
Always a good cop. So I was like, it's just like it's an opportunity for a clean break if you think this is going nowhere. That doesn't have to be personal.
No, so fresh and so clean. It's just
like, you know what? Like we are great, but I just feel like it's going to be so hard for us. Why don't we just take this break and then we'll figure it out or whatever?
Yep.
It's definitely an opportunity that you can take.
Well, what about any opportunities that come up to try and meet classmates? I know you said you met your roommate on a message board or
Yeah,
like a posting or
exactly.
something.
I mean, I think sometimes people get like very worked up about this idea that they need to be meeting people before classes start or before orientation starts, or they're going to be, kind of when the friend wheel spins, they're going to be left on the outside. I don't think that's true. I mean, if there are ways that you can connect with people and you do connect with them, that's great. You'll have some people that when you go to orientation and see their name tag, you can be like, oh my gosh, we talked on like the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But there'll also be all those people around you can just talk to anyway.
Yeah. I think one thing, though, that folks should consider is not like you need to be really thoughtful about picking your friends. You should connect with people you connect with. But I will say that I met and connected with a few friends at the beginning of law school who didn't live locally. They were commuting in. And I wish I had initially met more people who were like living near the school because like they were great friends, but like they didn't go to as many of the social events and they weren't around for as much of the stuff. And so I kind of felt like I kind of needed to meet more new people because
Right.
I wanted to have like a social circle at school. And then some of these friends became much more kind of like academic friends. Like we would study together or we would collaborate on projects together. So it is just finding your people in your community is a key. So I think if you have opportunities to kind of meet anyone that you think you might connect with, great. I mean, you never know when you're going to meet the people that are going to be important in your life, but I don't think you need to put weight on it. I think you just need to kind of just be open to meeting people. And if an opportunity arises and you're already in town and you have the ability to get together with people, it's not going to be stressful. Why not? You might meet somebody or you might see a friendly face. I think it really just depends. But, I do think you want to keep an eye out for folks that you want to spend time with because this is going to be your kind of key social circle for a while.
Right. And the other thing is you may meet someone that you like and you think is great at orientation, but then you're in totally separate sections and you
Yep.
never see each other for the entire semester.
Yeah.
And, those things happen. So I think, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to be around the same people over and over. So you will have people you're at least exposed to. I think exposure therapy can lead to friendship. But I agree, you want to be kind of looking for these opportunities to find people who are simpatico, but you don't necessarily have to force it. Like I think you will have plenty of opportunities in school to meet plenty of people.
But that one commuter friend, we are still friends. She's and like she is like one of the lawyers I like constantly refer people to. She always takes my texts.
Nice.
And so, you never know who's going to be important in your life. So you kind of have to just go into it kind of with an open heart and see. You will also meet people that you don't gel with, and you should not try and be friends with those people.
Yeah, I mean, one of my best law school friends literally showed up on my doorstep one day because she had been assigned to an empty room in our house. And so we
you
became
just never
like
know.
really, really close friends because we happened to live together. We literally would never have met otherwise because she was the class below me. So
Yeah.
these things happen.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing that I think people don't sometimes think about is like, do you need like any clothes? Do you need to dress a certain way? Do you need to like clean out
This
your
is
closet?
this is like another angsty one that I think
Mhm.
fundamentally doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think what you wear to school, doesn't really matter all that much, but you should have some sort of suit in your closet that you could
Yeah.
put on to go to a professional event if you get invited
Yeah.
to something.
You need like your interview suit, your like going to a bar association event outfit, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So if you don't own anything like that, or it doesn't fit, or whatever, this would be a good time to like go out and do some research, like figure out what's going to look good on you, what's affordable. It doesn't have to be something crazy expensive. I mean, there are plenty of places that you can get like relatively inexpensive professional outfits, but you do want to have at least something, complete with the shoes and if the belt or the handbag or whatever that you can just put on if you need to put on that professional outfit.
Yep. And I think that really underutilized resources for some of this clothing too are things like Poshmark or the Real Real or ThreadUp. A lot of times you can get access to, a high quality piece of clothing at just a fraction of the price, and then it will stay nicer longer. And one nice black or like dark navy blue suit is going to, you can turn that into so many different outfits.
Yep.
I mean, we've got some episodes on like what to wear, but you can make one black suit look so many different outfits with like what you wear underneath it and the jewelry and your accessories.
Yeah.
And
particularly
even
as a
for
woman,
men,
if you have
same
like
thing.
the skirt version and the pant version, like you're good. Like that's like a whole week basically of outfits.
Right. And even for men, it's like different colored shirts, a few different ties. No one's going to notice you're wearing the same black suit to every event.
Right.
So
no one cares.
Nobody cares. But I think that, shopping around and trying to find something that you feel good in, that is a good use of your time over the summer, because you just need to have it hanging in your closet so you can grab it and go.
Right. You don't want it to be a stressful situation when you do have an invite to do something that requires that type of outfit to be like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to wear? Like, just go ahead and solve that problem right now so that you know that you are going to be able to like put that on, walk out the door and feel confident.
Yeah. Well, I know that we're getting to the point where we need to somewhat wrap things up. Any other thoughts of what folks should be doing kind of at this summer?
No, I mean, again, I think you don't need to panic about anything. If you do want to do something that's kind of like getting you in the mindset, read some hard books, look at Start Law School Right. Another thing we've had people do that has been successful is kind of write yourself a letter about why you're doing this, because there will be times in the first semester where you probably will have some self-doubt and you'll think, oh my gosh, like either I'm not smart enough to do this, or I don't want to be doing this, or this is horrible, I've ruined my life. And it's kind of nice to be able to go back to something that was when you were hopeful and optimistic and you actually thought this was a good idea, and kind of remind yourself of that and maybe, glom on to a little bit of that feeling when you're in a situation that is not feeling like that at all.
It's so true. I think so often we just lose why we choose to do things.
Right.
We just get on the hamster wheel. And it's nice to capture why you're optimistic, why you have excitement. And we actually encourage people to do this exercise throughout law school too. When you get ready for the bar, sometimes we ask people to write themselves a letter about why they want to be licensed, just so they can remind themselves why they're setting these goals for themselves.
Yeah, and the reality is if you can't come up with any reason that you're doing this, that might also be something to reflect upon during the summer.
So true. So true.
Because if you're not really actually that motivated, it's probably gonna, you're gonna hit some rough spots. So it might be a challenge.
Better to figure that out now before you're $200,000 in debt.
Exactly. We do not want you to waste all of this time and money. So if you literally sit down to write a letter and you cannot think of a single reason that you're actually going to law school, maybe pull back and reflect on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess my only other thing is keep listening to the podcast. I think that this podcast does have a lot of helpful information. And on our website, we do have archives where you can search by topic area. So if you're a new law student, you can listen to content that is specifically flagged for you. I think you might find that helpful. So, just kind of getting into the right mindset that way can be kind of fun and easy. Again, like no pressure. It's just little bits of nuggets in this idea of kind of exposing you to what you need to think about as you get started.
Right. And if someone really wants to do substantive work, they can listen to the Listen and Learn podcast.
True.
Because Lee basically breaks down specific questions or specific legal topics for you in a very easy to understand way and applies them to the law. So I will say that might not be the worst idea for someone who wants to sort of start seeing how the law relates to facts and how we put it all together. That could actually be a useful exercise.
It's true. I hear that people love Listen and Learn in the car while they're cooking. I get lots of feedback of like, while exercising, it's like, I listen to you. It's like things you never think about when you do a podcast. It's like what
so those are all out there free for the taking.
Exactly. Well, I think with that, we're probably out of time.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Law School Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review or rating on your favorite listening app. We would really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lee or Allison at lee@lawschooltoolbox.com or allison@lawschooltoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at lawschooltoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.